Hey everybody, nice to be off mute. Your faces are here, it's great to see everyone. I see a lot of familiar faces, but actually, and refreshingly a lot of new faces in the room today as well, so that's really good to see. So as I've heard, it has been a very hot topic, and especially in the context of wellness, which is why we wanted to make that kind of the underlying theme of the day. And I guess be really excited about the version update. Now I have just put in a quick definition because I don't ever like to assume that everyone understands what acronyms we're using. Like I said, there's a lot of new people in the room. So when we're talking about ASES, we're talking about the Australian Excellent Service Standards. And this is the set of accreditation standards that we're all working towards across the next year and a half. And like I said, there's been a bit of a lot of conversation for a fair amount of time, but we are reaching up to that deadline by June 2024 for everybody to be meeting those standards. I was mainly going to share with you a lot about the supports that are in place. We're hoping to have a really practical conversation today. I've actually got James from B&G, who's actually going to be joining us and giving us a live demonstration of the portal and actually going through what those standards look like, the kind of evidence pieces and how that sort of works and how that looks inside the portal and the other resources that you're going to have there to help you. But I just thought I'd sort of outline what we're doing from the Homelessness New South Wales perspective and what you can access from us. So in terms of the support, the one thing I really wanted to highlight was the one-to-one ASES strategy sessions. Now, I don't know if there's a few familiar faces in the room. I enjoy them. It gives us a chance to really connect with everyone. The other thing about the one-on-one support sessions, it's given us an opportunity to really understand, not just that one particular topic that we might be working through in that one-on-one session, but actually further and deepen our understanding of the context of which you guys are working, the challenges, and so they've been really, really useful for many reasons. They're going to continue to run right up to, June 2024, I hope. And so they're very casual. That's sort of the idea, is that you can reach out when you're ready and sort of saying, hey, we're in this part of the process, we've reached a stumbling block, we're not sure about this bit, or we feel like we could be doing something better here. We've got access to a number of subject matter experts that we can, if there are questions that I can't answer, we've got access to James, we've got access to a number of the assessors and a number of other people sort of working across different areas in the standards that we can then go and, I guess, ask those questions on your behalf as well too. We've also got the ASES to Greatness podcast. I don't know if anyone's listened to that, but it's worth a listen. It sounds like this. It's just me having a conversation, really. That's sort of the idea. So through the original pilots, there was 9 pilot organisations across 2018 that went through the ASES process, and an important part of that was peer learning, right? It's so important for us. So during our last year lockdown, we said, we're going to have another COP meeting, or what should we do? And we thought, this is a really great way to storytell and to share in a way that you can listen to it when you're ready. At your time, you can be at your desk and have it in the background driving in the car. So feel free to jump on that and have a look. And the other great thing about that is everyone that we have interviewed and every services story that is there, they've shared the challenges. It's definitely not all pretty, which I think is great, but they've also put their hand out to be mentors. So jump on, have a look, and you can actually reach out to them directly as well too, if you wanted to. We've got the B&G portal, which obviously I'll leave James to speak about in a few minutes. And we've actually got some video tutorials that are coming that I'm quite excited about. Am I seeming too excited? I've had a lot of fun this year, I'm not going to lie. And we've basically developed a series of tutorial videos where we've been able to interview assessors and actually get them to unpack the evidence and what they're looking for. So we've kind of viewed it from the way of, you can't sit down and have a one-on-one conversation with them. Obviously, that's not always possible. That you could essentially jump on there and get a similar kind of feel from those tutorial videos. So they're quite extensive, and they'll be hopefully quite helpful, and they'll be launching, we're hoping, early in the new year. So we're still finalising the editing and all that type of thing, but that's really exciting. And then, of course, the ASES supports and the grants funding, which has been standing for a long time, but everyone does have access to that, any existing and funded services. So all of that information is on the website. We're still going. There's lots of different ideas as well of other events and things that we'd really like to get some more feedback on about what might be needed as people work closer towards their ASES. My details are just there if anyone needs them as well too. I might just jump over to James to give you a demonstration of the BNG portal, and he'll run you through what that sort of looks like, how you can access it. There's a fantastic reading room, there's so many resources, and obviously it's all a funded support service.
Thanks, Lauren. Hello, everyone. I think I might even try and steal a little bit of Elaine Lolbeck's IP. I really liked that hiding vegetables in the dinner comment. I haven't heard that one before, but I'm definitely going to use that, I think, going forward. I might even try and incorporate that into this little session right now. So oh, there we go. If we look on the screen, you'll see we're currently on the home page of the portal. But what I'd like to do is we'll come back to the home page in a moment and take a bit of a look into the Australian Service Excellence Standards themselves and the assessment process. But what I might do is, first of all, jump across to the reading room, because that's the repository of all the resources within the platform to assist providers in addressing the Australian Service Excellence Standards. So just bear with me a moment. There we go. Okay, so here we are. We're inside the reading room right now. Well, there we go. And as we scroll down the reading room, there's a couple of things I just want to point out in here. So within the reading room, there's over 500 resources in terms of things like template policies, template forms, various information sheets, good practice guides, evidence guides. And that's not just in the context of the Australian Service Excellence Standards, it's also more broadly around, running your organisation in general. So there's a whole host of different resources that are not necessarily tied to the Australian Service Excellence Standards. They might be more broadly around governance, human resources, safety, etc. So we'll have a look at a couple of those in just a moment. If I just expand this heading, there's a couple of specific resources that have been put in by Homelessness New South Wales. We've got the ASES Certificate Evidence Guide in here, but a range of other resources in terms of cultural competency, good practice guidelines, etc. I also just want to point out there's a series of videos here in the reading room of the portal, and as you can see, it's the portal's not exclusively around the Australian Service Excellence Standards. There's well over 100 different leading national and state level quality standards within the platform. As you can see, just a couple, 4 standards here. So what we're looking at here are short 8 to 10 minute videos on, for example, the Australian Service Excellence Standards. So if you have a new staff member, or perhaps, equally importantly, a new board member who might be very well qualified, they may be some retired doctor or lawyer or accountant, whatever it might be, they just may not be familiar with your core compliance requirements. So you could get them to watch, this short 8 to 10 minute video on the Australian Service Excellence Standards, which basically explains the structure of the Australian Service Excellence Standards and goes into a little bit of underlying detail across each of those practice standards within that. And likewise across some of those other standards like the National Child Safe Standards or some other standards like aged care or NDIS. Now, of course, for those of you that are pure SHS providers, something like the aged care quality standards or the NDIS practice standards are perhaps not of relevance to you, but certainly, across all the different SHS providers in New South Wales here, there are many who provide a whole range of other services. So we'll take a look at some of the other standards in the platform in a moment. Actually, what I might just point out as well is up the top of the page, we've got a search bar here. So if we're looking for specific resources in relation to the Australian Service Excellence Standards, we can actually type in a little code like ASES 1.1. I think I've typed that in correctly. Oh, and there we go. A whole bunch of resources relating to that first practice standard within ASES, which I think is strategic planning is the first section within ASES. A number of those resources pop up. So within the reading room, as I said, large number of resources. But what we've done is we've tagged those resources so that to help you find them in the reading room. Of course, if you're looking for something a little bit more specific, you can type in, whatever the keyword search might be. If you're looking for something around child safety, for example, you just type in a keyword search like child or whatever the theme is that you're looking for, and a number of resources will pop up there. Okay, so back to the reading room. I just want to point out a few more things here in terms of resources in the reading room. All the resources are gathered under these dozen headings that you can see here. So if you're looking for something specifically around, HR or governance or whatever it might be, you can click on the underlying topic there, and then you see a range of subheadings: governance structures, board roles and responsibilities, board recruitment, board performance, etc., etc. So a lot of resources there. And if we just scroll a little bit further down, we've got evidence guides across all the leading standards around the country. And then for anyone who is not familiar with the platform, if you invite in any of your colleagues, and you can invite in an unlimited number of colleagues into your account, they can watch any of these videos within the reading room as well to explain how to use the platform. Now, I just want to jump back for a moment to this standards tab in the platform, because I was explaining a moment ago, within the platform, it's not just around the Australian Service Excellence Standards. As I said, there's probably 120 or 130 different standards within the platform. Child safety standards, other leading standards, ACNC governance standards, NDIS practice standards, aged care quality standards, mental health standards, really wide range of different standards within the platform. So if we just expand any one of those headings, like the national standards, for example, you can see there is a very wide range of standards within the platform, even best practice modules around things like the Rainbow Tick standards or the national standards for volunteer involvement, etc. If we look down at the state and territory standards for New South Wales, you can see the New South Wales Child Safe Standards, which came into effect from the 1st of Feb this year, and a range of other New South Wales specific standards. So that's just a quick look at all the different standards in the platform. But what I might do now is, if I just come back to the home page, I just want to go into the Australian Service Excellence Standards and just give you a quick look at the assessment module for the Australian Service Excellence Standards. So let's click into this one where we've done a little bit of work here, where we're the grand sum of 1% progressed. And then you'll see the structure of the Australian Service Excellence Standards: strategic planning, business planning, sound governance, etc. We expand any one of those underlying standard headings. And then if we click into the first module, for example, around roles and values, we have a hyperlink that goes straight through to the relevant section within the ASES evidence guide to help you think about what sort of evidence you might want to link to demonstrate how you might be complying with this particular requirement. In this case, in this dummy account, I've already loaded up a number of evidence docs here. This first requirement is around the roles and values of the organisation being clearly identified and communicated. We've answered yes to that. We've put in some supporting contextual remarks around why we think we might be doing a good job in relation to this indicator. And of course, with the platform, you can log in and log out at any point in time. And as I said, you can invite in as many colleagues as you want, so you can have multiple staff members working within the platform at exactly the same time. And you just steadily, save your work as you go. So you can come back in at any time and add in additional linked evidence docs. You can come in and add to your qualitative commentary here, which can be up to 500 or 600 words against each requirement. Not that you would probably want to go quite to that extent. And then once you're happy with the work that you've done, you can move on to the next requirement. I should point out as well, with the examples of linked evidence docs that we've got in here within the platform, you'll see up the top the org chart's a PDF doc, down the bottom the mission statement's a Word doc, and the middle one is actually, it's a hyperlink. In this case, it's jumping to Homelessness New South Wales website, and they might be putting in some stuff here around their vision, purpose and values, which might be relevant to that particular requirement. For example, if it was Homelessness New South Wales addressing this particular requirement. So the point that I wanted to make is simply that as you are adding in evidence against the Australian Service Excellence Standards, it can be any form of evidence, and in particular, the ability to put in a hyperlink means that you can have a hyperlink to your website, you can have a hyperlink to a document that you store on SharePoint, you can have a hyperlink to a third-party software platform that you use to manage risk or complaints or whatever it might be. So there's quite a bit of flexibility in terms of what you can do with the evidence that you link in the platform. And then on the back of all the work that you've done, what I want to point out, or once we're happy with the very first indicator, of course, we can move on to the next indicator. But of more interest, what I want to point out is the summary outputs that can be generated on the back of your compliance work in the platform, because what we're enabling you to do is to centralise all of that compliance work, not just against ASES, it might be against the child safe standards, it could be against the ACNC's governance standards, all the work's in the one place. If you're being audited by one of the approved ASES assessors, one thing you can do is invite them directly into your account, but what we've also done with virtually every ASES assessor is set up their own dedicated reviewing area within the platform, so that with your permission, if you have an account, we can link your account to your reviewer or to your auditor, and that way they can very simply undertake that desktop review of all the evidence that you might have linked against ASES certificate. So let's just have a quick look at the summary outputs in the platform. So for ASES, we're now just going to take a quick look at the evidence pack. So here under strategic planning, where there's about half a dozen indicators, you can see we've only linked evidence to a few of them. So the first few indicators around roles and values and review processes. We can amend our evidence as we go, but also we can generate some nice summary reports which can be downloaded into PDF, and they summarise your answers to every single requirement, including all of your qualitative responses, as well as all of your linked evidence. So that's just a quick run through how the portal works. I don't know whether I've gone over time or under time, or we're all going fine? Great. So I guess lastly, just a couple of points to leave you all with. As probably most of you may be aware, you know, the portal is provided free to all smaller SHS providers. If you don't already have an account but you think you might like to have an account, you simply need to reach out to Lauren and the team at Homelessness New South Wales. It's all very straightforward in terms of setting up a new account. If you've got any more questions, you go straight through to Lauren, or you can come through to us. And I think what we're probably going to do, this has been a bit of a summary run through the portal, but we're tentatively planning to do a more detailed demonstration. Might not be till the new year, I think, given we're getting a bit busy at the end of this year. So we'll keep you posted on that. So thanks very much.
Thanks, James. Every time you speak, I learn something new. I know it's a lot. There is a lot in the portal. Like I said, every time I go into it, I'm like, oh, there's a new thing. Oh, I didn't know that. So it is a lot. Like James said, this was a very, very brief run through. But like a more detailed tutorial is something we could do in a one-on-one support session. So it could be me and James jumping on a Zoom with you and actually working through setting it up with you. What does it look like? Where am I putting my evidence? How am I linking that? How do I share that with the staff member that's working on that piece? All that type of thing. So the BNG portal is a really essential tool in helping you organise all of your evidence and collating it and collecting it in a clear way for the assessors there too. I know we're quite pressed for time, but we do have time for one or two questions if there are any. And obviously it doesn't have to be necessarily focused around the wellness standards as such. We're happy to take sort of broader questions, but at the same time happy to have anything sort of emailed through and any feedback on anything as well. So you got a microphone? If there is any questions, you can just sort of raise your hand. Anything in particular around assessment, assessors, accessing assessors, anything around the B&G portal or anything like that? No?
Quick one from me. Lauren, would it be possible to do a brief outline of the new requirements for ASES version 9 and how that may fit with the sexual wellbeing work?
Yes, so we did. We actually had Marie Davidson, one of the assessors, who was going to do that very brief outline. Unfortunately, she hasn't been able to join us, and so she did have a few very brief slides just to sort of talk about that. But the idea with the sector wellbeing survey is that survey can actually provide part of the evidence for you. So it's almost by completing that survey and having that done across your service, you then can submit the fact that you've sort of done that, what that looks like for you, and those details actually form part of your evidence. So, I mean, it's a real, time saver, I guess, in that sort of double sense. And there is a few other requirements also that are around physical space. So we're talking about having a break room, and it's more than just a fruit bowl. I think that's what Marie always says. It's more than just a fruit bowl, but it's actually having physical space for workers to be able to go and have that time out, to be able to rest and recuperate and all those types of things. Now, obviously, they've been definitely brought about by COVID and the response to COVID as well too. But I think a lot of the evidence points that I've seen the assessors looking for are things that we've sort of mentioned, we've already started doing in other ways as well too. So really the sector wellbeing survey is really just culminating that and strengthening that. But yeah, definitely can form part of your evidence. So tick. Yeah.
I think I've missed the bit about, is that wellbeing survey actually available to us?
Yeah,
now?
so the sector wellbeing survey, which Caroline spoke about earlier, has just been piloted. So we have we've just completed the pilot for that, and Elaine that got up and spoke was part of that pilot. So that will be available to you ongoingly on an annual basis. That will run in line with the client outcomes, not at the same time, but a similar sort of time. That it could be an annual survey that you do. So you've got your client outcomes survey for those that I've just opened that, and maybe need to give that an explanation of what that is. So you've got your client outcomes survey that becomes available to you annually, and then this sector wellbeing survey will sit side by side with that annually too. So both of those tools and resources are being provided. Again, that's sort of all free of cost, and both of those tools form really key parts of evidence for you, and they're going to be available annually.
So when?
The pilot has just concluded.
Right.
So it is always around an end of financial year. So usually the client outcome surveys are run around May, so that they're usually ready for the end of financial year. So that's going to reopen and probably be open once again around May next year. So that's both the client outcome survey and the sector wellbeing survey that we were speaking about today, that was presented on today, will be available around May next year, and annually then ongoing.
Sorry, just to clarify, one aspect of the wellbeing survey, which I think people would be really interested to know, is that how this operates is that when you sign up as a service, you will get unlimited access for individual team members, so you can go in and do that survey as many times as you want. It then creates that toolkit and that plan around the what you can do for yourself as a worker. It then has a manager's plan, so that's the sort of the whole of service plan, and then what we will then be doing is aggregating all that data into a whole of sector report. So really some of the timing around May is that we want to, on an annual basis at the same time of the year, provide that, well, what is a picture of the whole of the SH sector? How are we travelling? And how are we comparing to other areas of the sector? For example, the Wellbeing Lab use thousands of different organisations across the world have signed up to this tool. They've got some really good data around community services in Australia. So it also gives us the opportunity to look at how we are faring against sort of relevant sectors as well. But like I said, for those services that do sign up, you'll have that ability to run it as often as you want. But what we would say is that we'd like you to commit to running it once a year at that time so we can then do the sector report.